before Zelda came out, I had started playing, if you don't know, the original Last of Us, and I also played The Last of Us Part 2. And, turns out Zelda came out, so I decided to put Part 2 kind of on the back burner, which ended up being such a terrible idea because, as it turns out, I was only like 4 or 5 hours away from finishing the game.
Oh,
Which
really?
I just thought the
Oh
game was.
wow.
I thought the game was going to keep on going at the point where I was at. But let me see. Okay. But yeah, thoughts on The Last of Us Part Two. Again, I want to try and be quick. This is a. It's the polish and just overall quality of this game is crazy. Like, it's a totally beautiful game. It has so many like cool and awesome set pieces. I mean, I guess just kind of getting right into the controversial stuff. I mean, Phoenix got to play. You played this before me, right? And I don't remember. Did you have an overall positive, or did you love it, or were you kind of middling?
I didn't love it. I liked it. I liked it more, I think, than,
The
the general
majority of the
consensus. Most
yeah.
people really didn't. And I think the reason people didn't like it a lot, I don't know, it was
Again, do we want
influenced by
to?
a lot of things.
Phoenix or Keita said he doesn't care about spoilers. So
Yeah, Metal, this is your chance if you don't want us
yeah,
to
if you
spoil
don't
Last
want
of Us 2.
I really don't care.
okay, because this is
Yeah,
this
I
has
liked it though.
some good stuff.
Now, one question I have for you before you get into the kind of details of it, because I know when this game first came out, you watched a Let's Play of it, I think, right?
Hmm.
And you were kind of in that super negative camp, like, oh, that looks terrible for XYZ reason. You kind of just, I think, fell in with the camp that was complaining
Yeah, I
about
did
it. Has your opinion changed now that you've not only played the game, but also now you've played the
experience
first
the
game, you've
yeah.
seen the TV show, like you have the whole, expectation of what this game is about, the history of it, all of that.
Well, I do think in terms of the narrative and in terms of the overall direction of this game, I would say I still hold fairly fast to some of my opinions from watching that Let's Play. But in terms of like the gameplay and again like the quality and how much fun the game is, no, it is a great game. Like I don't see how you could argue it's not. Like the quality, the way the gameplay is, the flow, like the environments,
I
overall.
still didn't love the gameplay, to be honest,
Really?
but
I thought it was
that's
great.
I thought it was fine. And I'm not trying to come down
Maybe it's
too
because
hard
I
on it,
played it
but
right after playing the OG Last of Us. We're like
yeah, you
going,
might notice the changes a
yeah,
little more.
yeah, like yeah, you're right. Like going right in from one directly into that. It to me it felt like a decent jump up in terms of how it felt. Um, I guess just getting again into I think the more interest, even though the gameplay and everything is fantastic, the more interesting aspect is, of course, the narrative and the decision making with what to do with certain characters. I do think it's going to be this game's forever. The dialogue around it's going to be super interesting because it's going to be a conversation as to like the world of The Last of Us and what the themes are for The Last of Us, right? Where like I get it that the theming is supposed to be that this world is so horrible and so bad that there is really nothing to be saved. There is no one's. A lot of people coming out of this game were talking about, oh, the character of Ellie is ruined and people hate Abby and there's no one likes any of these characters, which I agree with. I think coming out of this game, really none of the characters ended up being all that likable. And the game tries hard to get you to like some of them, and I don't know, man. It just ended. I ended up walking away thinking, man, this world sucks. Which
Yeah.
I guess that's the point. But I do remember the first game being a little bit more like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This game, there is like no.
See, I kind of disagree with the light at the end of the tunnel. Like the first game, I think tries to set you up to have that expectation. Like, all right, you're gonna get to the end, and either Ellie's gonna, have the cure and save everybody, or her and Joel are gonna have the perfect ending. And then at the very last minute, the whole game just rips the rug out from under you. Which I
Mhm.
think that was the kind of big reveal that this game was never about having a perfect, hopeful ending. Like this is a bleak world, beginning to end. Nothing is perfect. Everything is messy. And I think that's true when you look at every character. There is no perfect protagonist in this. Like most games, most stories, you're used to having like, you have your protagonist who is true and true, the good guy that you follow behind the entire time. You support his decisions. And Joel, of course, was set up to kind of be that in the first game.
Protagonist is supposed to
And
be
then he
you.
hit.
Yeah, most of the time
Well, that's
in a
what
game.
you
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
right? You're trying to project yourself onto these characters
Hmm.
until Joel makes his stand at the end. And then you have to decide if you agree with that or not. And I think it just goes to show that human nature is messy, right? Most people are not altruistic all the time, and he made a decision that not everybody's going to agree with. And then you see that repercussion fall over into Ellie, fall over into Abby. So I think that's a very human thing. I think this takes a very bleak look at it. I think it's almost more not that there is a general sense of hope out there. It's kind of it gives you these moments of live in the moment, appreciate what you have while you have it kind of thing. Like I think it's even like the whole point of the ending, or one of the points of the ending is like Ellie can't be happy in the moment, right? She's letting her revenge, her anger kind of cloud everything to push her into worsening her situation when she had a moment to be happy, enjoy the moment with
It is.
her partner, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So
I just think though, to an extent within the game, it starts to become the what is it, the self-fulfilling prophecy, where it's like
mhm.
these characters are constantly complaining, constantly uh, uh, depressed, and constantly angry about their situation in their world, but they're constantly also making decisions that the repercussions are revenge. You know what I
Make it
mean?
worse. Yeah.
Make it worse, and it's just
Which is
like,
a very human thing to do, though. Like that's what we
yeah,
do all the time, right? We think off emotion more often than probably our mind, and that leads us to make decisions in a moment that we shouldn't. We get angry, we get vengeful, we get upset, and we make decisions in those compromised mental states, and it leads you towards hopefully nothing as severe as what we see in this
oh,
game, but I
better
think that's a
not,
very
better
human
not cross me.
perspective to take. So, but you're right. This is a very bleak game. Like it
Yes.
doesn't pull any punches, and it's pretty much showing you that yeah, don't expect anything good that happens in this game to stay good for very long.
Yeah. And again, I feel like that's the more interesting thing. I mean, I remember when this game came out, that's what everybody was talking about. I mean, for the most part, I don't think the characters, I will disagree with some people, I don't think the characters are as dislikable as other people thought. Like, um, I don't think they are super likable, but I didn't like walk away hating anybody from this game. I just thought it was,
And we're talking Abby, right? That's
yeah, well, yeah, I feel like the only flaw with the Abby character is I think the game tries a bit hard to get you to like her, and I get why they do that is to um I guess they're trying to contrast her versus just Ellie and where Ellie
yeah.
is at that time, and it's just like again, it's very like self-fulfilling prophecy where like people are happy, they get screwed over by other people, and then it's just a constant rotating door of people
Hmm.
screwing each other over and going after each other, and I guess that's the way the game kind of ends it, where it's just like, that constant cycle of revenge and stuff. It kind of just leaves you with nothing and barren.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, where do they even go from here? I mean, nope, everything is gone basically. So it's
Well, at the end, there's a chance there's still. Oh man, was it a firefly? I can remember now. Camp they're trying to find at the end because they hear like don't they get like a signal or something? There's some hint that there's a next headquarters or base to go to.
Abby and I can't remember the little
I can't remember
the
the
character's
other
name.
character.
Uh, but I thought that was a trap because that's how they get kidnapped.
Well, the first one was a trap because that's how they get kidnapped. But I think there was a second one after that. I don't
Really?
know.
Because they go to a house where they're underneath. There's a basement, and
Yeah, I remember
yes,
that.
there's like a firefly signal, and then they reach that signal, and as soon as they walk out, they get jumped and kidnapped.
After the end of the game, after the Ellie Abby fight, like in
And
the
the
water.
island or whatever it's called.
Yeah, after that, there's something, but that's neither here or there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, but you're right. I mean, this whole game very dim. I mean, it does have a somewhat quote unquote happy note where Ellie at least realizes the path she's taking and basically pulls herself out of it instead of taking the step that Abby was about or did with Joel. She breaks the cycle essentially. But the point being is, it's too late because when she gets back home, partner's gone, kid's gone,
Can't play the
all of them. So,
guitar. Lost her fingers. It's
yeah,
like,
it's sad.
yeah.
It's sad. Do you feel like and I think you kind of answered this because you said they kind of tried too hard to make you like Abby. I think part of my issue with that is how long they make you play as Abby. Like this was a
It's
long game.
more than probably Ellie, I would say.
Hmm?
I'd say you probably play as Abby a little more than Ellie.
It's real close. And I think it's too much. I mean, I know what they were trying to do there. I feel like they could have cut the Abby section probably in half, and they even could have cut some of the Ellie stuff down. Like this was
Yeah,
a long game, almost for the
way
sake of
too
being a little
long.
too long.
Yeah,
Yeah, for what it is.
yeah, I agree. I don't think it was totally for naught. I mean, there were a couple sections with Abby that are really cool. Like the whole skyscraper section is one of my
Mm.
favorite sections in the whole game. Like the whole, you're way up in the air and
Walking
you're
through, yeah.
traversing, yeah, and then you get into the skyscraper, and as it turns out, of course, it's completely filled with clickers everywhere. But
Honestly, I mean, I liked that segment. If I recall correctly, I didn't like that section of the story where she's trying to save, and I can't remember the character's name.
uh,
But where they go to that village, like that whole side story where it's not Abby versus Ellie, it's this other thing going on. I mean, I get what they were trying to say with that
I
story,
agree with you
but
though.
it bogged it down. Like you could have knocked out what 6 hours of that game probably, or maybe a
Hmm.
little shy of that by yanking that out. And I don't think you would have lost too much. I think the core of the game would have still been there, and it would have felt a lot tighter. But yeah, is what it is.
No. Again, there were a couple sections I loved. That skyscraper one was one in particular. I loved the whole the museum section with Joel and Ellie. The whole it was like a prelude, or what is it? It was a flashback kind of to
Yeah.
a special moment between them, which that was like one of the best. Of course, the section with both of them in it was one of my favorites. But um, do we want to talk about Joel? Uh, Do you wish he would have been in the game a little bit more?
I think it was in enough.
Are you okay
Um,
with what happened there?
yeah,
How it was done?
yeah. It seemed very natural. I mean, I like Joel, so I mean, I would like to keep him around. I'm a little sad that they, knocked him out, but it's not like he was gone for the entire game. You had lots of flashbacks. You had moments that gave him closure. There was closure to him and Ellie's story. I mean, it's all very bittersweet.
I mean, you're not supposed to like it. He's
Yeah.
like the main character that you
And
think.
even if you agree with his choice in the first game for what he did to save essentially his daughter, you can certainly understand why other people would not in a world like that. Like this other girl, not knowing that was a relationship between Joel and Ellie, just saw this guy murder her dad. So she
Hmm.
was just going on her vengeance streak. So, not saying that vengeance is ever right, but I understand the perspective there, and I definitely understand why Joel got taken out the way he did. It was brutal, but this game is brutal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was honestly fine with the majority of story beats. As dark as they were and as bummery as they were, I thought it was very fitting, and I thought the story they told was a good one.
I tell you, I was very middling. Like I thought the game was very good. I enjoyed it. It's definitely not a game I think I ever care about playing again. Like if I'm gonna replay it, I'm probably gonna replay the much shorter 8 to 10 hour first game, and probably like I feel like that game's replayability is much higher considering the length of it, in my opinion.
I
But
guess so. Here's another question. 'Cause I mean, I agree with you. Like, I wouldn't play Last of Us 2 again. I probably wouldn't play one again either, but that's a different story. Do you feel like this was a necessary sequel? Like, would it have been fine just leaving it at Last of Us 1? Like, even if you think Last of Us 2 story was good, was it needed?
I don't think so. I like, it's sad to say because like again, the quality and the gameplay overall is fantastic. I don't feel like there's anything to really take away from this story, even though like I get the theming, I get the beats. It's just not a game that you walk away feeling like anybody has really learned anything. Even though I guess that's that
I mean,
point of
that's
Ellie
true.
letting her go. I guess is the only thing at the end. But
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Both Ellie and Abby do learn something at the end, for better or for worse. Like, they both let go. Because Abby could have decided to keep hunting Ellie at the end of that, too, and she doesn't. And then same thing for Ellie. So, I mean, there's certainly lessons that were learned. I like games that end very ambiguous, though. I like stories that end ambiguous, just because it leaves something up to you to kind of fill
hmm.
in. Not that I don't sometimes do like a very clean cut and dry. This is how the story goes. For a game like this that has so many ambiguous beats already to it, I feel like writing or filling in the blanks is almost a disservice sometimes because it takes some of the thought out of it a little bit. And not that it invalidates what your head canon is. I know a lot of people will kind of go with that route, but I like the idea of the game ending at one, and then you imagine what Joel and Ellie's relationship would have been like after the first game, and it could be anything you want it to be, and you could justify it however you want it to be. And I think that's a more interesting way to approach the story. But not that the story they gave you is bad. I just like I like the ambiguous ending of the first one.
Do you hope that in the TV show, when they cover this game, which they are, they say, do you hope they don't change anything? There's nothing altered you would want to see?
What would they change? Like, I'm sure they'll change a bunch of little story beats. I can't imagine they'll change the big story beats. And what would I want them to even change them to? Not
Yeah,
kill Joel? They kind of have to do that.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
do we want?
The killing of Joel is one of the biggest things in the game. I feel like is important to the theming because again, the whole theming is people's decisions, you know, coming back to bite them, and it's like,
But there would be no part two if Joel didn't get knocked off in the beginning. The whole story is built around that.
yeah,
So I don't know. I feel like it's going to follow it relatively closely. I mean, the first season followed the first game pretty closely. I mean, there'll be small little stories that change, but I think overall it's going to be the same thing. I have a feeling this is going to be two more seasons. I think season two is going to be the Ellie half, and then season two is going to be Abby, and then the wrap up at the end. So we
can
got two more seasons of this coming.
can you even have a third game if everyone's learned their lessons and now there's no more revenge and nobody
You could. I guess the question is, what does it center on? Like,
the third game would have to
does
have
it
its
center?
own theming if it would have to change
Yeah, I
if
mean,
that's
does
the
it center
case.
on Abby? Does it go back to Ellie? Like, I don't know. But once again, like, I think at this point, any story you write is not necessarily going to be better than the thought of where you could take the story. Like right now, Ellie's sitting here with this blank slate. She's already kind of burned all of her bridges. I think kind of contemplating where her story goes is more meaningful than if somebody just wrote out a story and be like, yep, this is what happened to Ellie after that. I think it almost cheapens this ending somehow. But either way, we're ranting on this a little
No,
bit, so I don't want to keep us on it all night.
yeah,
Metal's gonna fall asleep there. He hasn't said a word in like 45 minutes,
no,
so
I agree.
there he goes.
I didn't want to go too crazy with it. Overall, it is a game that must be played. I think if especially if you played the first game. I mean, I don't see why you would want to jump right into this one if you haven't. But yeah, it's
Well,
fun.
you did. You didn't play the first game. You didn't watch the show because it wasn't a thing then. You
Oh
just
yeah, fair
watched the
enough.
Let's Play of two. And I think at the time I even gave you a hard time about it because I'm like, I don't think you can really appreciate two without playing one. Like you could have a negative opinion too, and I'm not going to argue with it too much. I get that, but I will complain if you haven't at least played or watched the first game because
You can't say
that's what
that
leads
now.
into the whole thing. Can't say it now, but your opinion has shifted a little bit. So
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
it's not a bad game. In fact, it's a great game. It just, I don't know. It's not like to me. It's not as all time memorable as playing the first one was. Like the first one was like
Fair enough.
really cool for me. Um, okay, so moving on from that.
Let's go.